Joining us now, President of the U.S. Middle East Project and Israeli peace negotiator during the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, Daniel Levy. Daniel, thank you for being with us. Let's talk about the other people that, we're hoping and praying for, and that is the hostages. A lot of them women, a lot of them little kids, some grandparents as well. The U.S. says it appears that they are close to a deal, Israel and Hamas, to release a group of them. Talk to me about the ins and outs here. What makes this so complicated?
Can I just first say that those images, Katie, if that's not reason enough for those who still oppose a ceasefire, including, unfortunately, the President of the United States, to change that position, the 4,500 Palestinian children who have been killed since October 7th, those who were killed in Israel on October 7th. I'm at a loss. I don't know what is. Now, there's a link between that and the question you asked me, Katie, regarding this prisoner release, because in the absence of the US, the country with the most leverage, the closest to Israel, pushing for a ceasefire, perhaps the on-ramp to ending this hell is this prisoner release. And all the things I'm hearing, Katie, is, as you said, as you've reported, we're closer, but it's not done until it's done. Now, it's complicated. What exactly will be in exchange for the release? Initially, I believe it will be most of the young, female, elderly, sick civilians who are being held in Gaza and who are reachable by Hamas. Hamas is not the only group holding Israelis in Gaza. In exchange for that, there will be a several-day cessation of hostilities. The details of what that looks like. Will Israel fly drones over Gaza during that release? The details of exactly how many. Who will Israel release? Israel holds women and children, Palestinians, in its prisons. So who exactly will be released in exchange? Those are the details. It seems, and let's be clear, this kind of a deal was available 4 weeks ago before the Israeli ground incursion. The Israelis are saying now, because of the pressure, the deal can be done. If that's the victory narrative they need in order to get there, that's fine. Let them have that narrative. But now we need a yes. And I think that the party that's holding back from that yes is more on the Israeli official side. There have been credible reports in Israel of divisions within the Israeli war cabinet. There is very significant pressure from the families, unsurprisingly, from the families of those being held. There was a long march to Jerusalem to prioritize getting the Israelis out, doing the deal, agree to the negotiation package, and that's where we're at right now.
Can I ask you a broader question, bigger picture question? And this is regarding what happens next and whether... And what can not resolve this situation, because that's, a far cry, but what can ease the tensions in a long-term way? The Israeli government, as it currently is formed with Benjamin Netanyahu at its head, is just completely dismissing the idea of a two-state solution. They say it's just not possible. At least they're not going to talk about it right now. There are so many within Israel, Israeli citizens, who think that going back to what was happening before without a two-state solution is insane. It just didn't work then and can't work again. How do we get to a point where the Israelis are able to then credibly negotiate, if they're going to get to a two-state solution, with a Palestinian leadership in however it gets formed? Can they possibly do that with something like Hamas?
How long have you got? We need to put the building. We need to put the building blocks in place, Katie, and you touched on many of those. First of all, I don't think people have been paying attention. This Israeli government doesn't just say, look, we're not ready for a two-state solution. In this government, you have people who have openly and proudly advocated ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. That's the position of very senior ministers. They have talked about eradicating...
Those are the far right ministers that, yes, Netanyahu has aligned himself with, but they're not representative of all the Israelis. I just want to put that out there.
No, important, but it goes deep into Netanyahu's own Likud party. You would shudder at what members of his own Likud party are saying as well. So we've not been paying attention to what's going on there. And the longer they are in power, the worse this gets. Now, the centre isn't offering a strong alternative. But here is where it would be about what's the context in which they operate? What is the incentive package and the disincentives that would be created for forward progress? And I think three simple things we could take away from this. Number one, if the US and others act as the guarantors that Israel will not be held accountable when it violates international law, that Israel will be treated with impunity, then Israelis take the easy choice, and the easy choice is not to do anything or to do worse things. So number one, Israel has to have the correct incentive and disincentive structure. Number two, and you referenced this, the Palestinians need a leadership that can unify their people, that is credible, that is legitimate in the eyes of their people. It sounds incredibly far-fetched to think that that will have to include Hamas, but that's the reality in hard, ugly conflicts. The Israelis have done what they've done to the Palestinians. The Palestinians aren't exactly excited to be negotiating with them, but both sides are going to have to include some of the hardliners. And finally, we are going to need to be serious with the Arab states and others, because the normalization accords led by Trump gave Israel regional relations without doing anything on the Palestinian side, and that sent the wrong signal. So a lot of work to be done, but we need to start with a ceasefire.
A lot of work indeed. Daniel Levy, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry for asking you such a big question on such a tight time frame, but it is a complicated subject. Thank you. Coming up next with Speaker Mike Johnson.